share them with. And it's life, and the point is enjoying who you share it with.
All right, guys, this is Field Tested with Brad Arrington, and got a super cool guest on today, my good friend, Mr. David Andrews. Glad to have you on here, Mr. David.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, so no, like we were talking earlier, this is something new for us, and this podcast is about, when we're out here building a team of dogs, we're out here leading. There's 100 employees out here, and I help with the rec department here local, football, baseball, coaching. I'm inspired by people leading, coaching, and on the other side, when you're following, what are the best ways to be the best you can be when you're on a team, whether it's your profession, a ball team like yourself, and when I lead the dogs and the guides and all my team out here. So, 10 seasons in the NFL with New England, two-time Super Bowl champion, team captain for you're the team captain for 8 years for New England,
Yes,
correct?
Yes.
I mean, nobody else has more leadership skills than you, and all the success that you had. Tell us a little bit about what it is to be a leader and to lead a team of that caliber. Mr. Tom Brady, your quarterback, and for that caliber of a team and quality of players behind you. Tell us what it meant to be able to lead a team like that, and what are the things you need to look at and to be the best leader you can be.
Well, first off, I'll have to say you've done a great job building your team at Mossy Pond. I got to spend a little bit of time down there this summer. Absolutely unreal experience. I've told so many people about it, and I didn't even get to do any hunting there. I was down there doing a speaking event, and just the way you have got that place going is unreal. The experience, like I said, I was there for a night, and I felt like I was, I wanted to stay for 5 months at that point. But yeah, look, I think leadership is such an interesting thing to me, and I get asked a lot of questions about it, and uh, a lot of people want to know. And I think there's sometimes people try to put leadership in just a box. This is what leadership is. And I think when you're around a team, uh, first of all, the first thing I think about is we had 4 or 5 captains every year, right? But there was guys on that team that were leaders. You can't, an organization, a group of people, right? Whatever you want to say, it can't just be 3 or 4 people pulling up a rope, right? And I had an O-line coach tell me this one time. Look, you're always going to have this. You're going to have, call it 10% of leaders trying to pull everybody up on any team, whatever, again, organization, and you're going to have 10% trying to pull people down, right? Negative, whatever. And then you've got this 80% in the middle. And it's trying to get that 80% to swing to that 10% side that's pulling everybody up. And then that 10% at the bottom, they're either going to fall off and die figuratively, or they're going to join the rest of the group. And, so I think there's all different kinds of leaderships. And, but the first thing I think about leadership is you got to be genuine, right? And you got to have relationships with people. I think
Communication.
yeah, and I think, I look, being a parent is different than being a leader for an organization. You're raising a human being, but you're also a leader. You're a leader of your household, your family. And I think about, well, if you're going to be hard on your son or daughter or whoever and demand the most out of them, well, if you don't have a relationship with that kid or your family, your wife, whoever, you can't lead them, because then it just comes out as, oh, dad's always on me, he's hard on me, and look, every kid has that. We've all thought that about our parents at one point or another. And then you get a little bit older, and you understand, well, my parents were trying to get the best out of me, when I even didn't think that. And I think that is what a leader tries to do for any group. So first off, to me, leadership has to start at the base level of a relationship. There's got to be some relationship there, because I also think you're, if you're a person who is, looking to leadership, right, and you don't think that the leader cares about you or wants what's best for you, then why do you want to do the hard things they're asking you to do?
That's right.
And so I've always thought that, our O-line coach here at the Patriots for a long time, Dante Scarnecchia, he was an old man, and he was a Marine, and he was hard on us, man. Now, he was tough, and he said a lot of things to us that, you wouldn't want to repeat. But we knew at the core of it, he wanted what was best for us, right? Whether that was playing for the New England Patriots for 10 years or playing for however long your contract was and leaving to go play for the Giants because they offered you a big contract. But, by you doing well and maximizing your ability for the New England Patriots, that's going to be good. One, obviously, for the organization, but obviously the whole team. And then it's going to be good for you, right? And it's going to set you up to get promoted or get a new contract or have success after your career. So that, to me, that's the ground level. When I think about leadership, it has to start with those relationships that you have with people.
It's funny you say that, and some people look at me like I got four heads when I talk about relationships with dogs. When I first started out, I was more like a drill sergeant with these dogs. I'm a dog lover, animal lover. I never abused them or anything, but I held them to a extreme high standard. But I had a mentor of mine tell me that you got to build the relationship. And my narrow mind in my 20s was like, a relationship with a dog. He should do what I ask him to do. But so in the mornings at 5 o'clock, we get here and we feed them and air them in the airing yard. And he told me, he said, get out there in that airing yard when Yard just hanging out and build that relationship with him. Rub him on the ears, talk to him. Before you get into the game, the game meaning hardcore training throughout the day, 4 and 5 lessons a day. Before you get into that demanding excellence where you can go and win that field trial, be his buddy, warm up on him, love on him. And in my early 30s, when we were more successful, that exactly what you're saying with a team right there, a team of humans, that team of dogs. When I would get out there and love on old Joe, and we would hang out for 15, 20, 30 minutes while they were doing their business, and we were getting set up for the day, waiting for the sun to rise. That's where we got that bonding period. And then at night, 9 o'clock, we rolled back in. We got in the airing yard, and I let them stretch their legs again and feed them and air them before they got put up for the day. And once I started doing that and loving on them, and there's some other great trainers out there that would even bring these dogs into their cabin or their Airbnb or their motel rooms the night before the field trial. I didn't get it when I was younger. But what it is, if you're going to hold that elite standard of excellence and hold them accountable that hardcore, they got to know you love them. They got to be able to trust you as well.
Exactly. That to me, look, because if you're a leader, right, you're eventually going to have to ask people to do hard things,
That's right.
and you're going to have to challenge people. You know, and I think there's a way to go about that, right? And look, and then with having those relationships, right, you might know, hey, this person, I need to handle this situation like this. This person, I need to be a little bit more demand. Like, however, you learn how people respond to criticism, coaching, all of those different things. And you have to navigate those with each person. You can't, lead each person by doing one thing. And um, that to me is a very true thing. And I learned with dogs. I became, we talked about it when we met this summer and hung out a little bit. I became very interested in a lot of the military working dogs. I have two
Yep.
German shepherds myself. I trained them myself. Nothing crazy, really. It's amazing to me. I think my dogs they're good dogs. They're house dogs, but they are very well minded. They listen, they anything I tell them to do, sit, lay, stay, heel, they do. But then my wife gets with them and she's like, well, they don't listen to me like they do you. They just do what they want. And I'm like, well, there's that relationship there. And then I learned that you don't want the dog to just listen to you out of fear. You want the dog to do what you're asking because he wants to please you, and it's not that the dog is, you know, feared of getting in trouble. He wants to do it because that's what he wants to do because he knows that we're gonna have fun when I do that. I'm gonna get a treat or the Kong or whatever, or go chase ducks, whatever it is. So, and I think the same about people too is, and a lot of times, I've played for Coach Belichick, and his leadership was very different, right? And there, you can say what you want, but you don't do all he did in his career and not have something right there. 20 years of sustained success is really impressive, but you know, it wasn't much about Bill and getting in trouble with Bill, but when he would get onto us, it was, hey, I let my teammates down, you
Yeah.
know? And it was that too, where I think as leadership, if you can build a culture of, a group of, and I just say men because it was a football team, obviously. If you can build a culture of men who have all these different personal whys, right? Everyone talks about a why, right? And you can't make everyone have that same why. We're all wired different. We all have different reasons why we work and do jobs and whatever. Some it's fame. That's fine. Some it's money. That's fine. We're all trying to provide for our families. Some is because I want to win championships, and some is like, hey, genuinely love being a New England Patriot. I'm so proud that I was a Georgia Bulldog and a New England Patriot. That's it. And but you got to get all these guys to come together and say, I don't want to let each other down. And sure, I am doing this for money, and I'm doing this for this or that or whatever it may be, but at the end of the day, I don't want to let my teammates down. So I'm going to be the best I can be. And that goes into the culture, right? The overall culture, which also, has to do with leadership. You got to get those guys in position that can foster, that can help that culture grow. Because if not, then it will fall apart, and you won't have success.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot when we're hiring new employees here, and everybody thinks they want to be a duck guide or a quail guide or a dog trainer because it sounds like fun. You get to mess with guns, you get to be out there hunting every day. But just like you said, the culture and the standard of working those 12, 14, 16 hour days, that standard, it's tough, but when you're engulfed with it and it's all your surroundings is that's what we do. That's what we do. We work hard out here and we grind. It's easy to follow suit, but it's also easy to find that one that's not going to make it. And in the interviews when we talk to our new employees, you know, I'm not going to have to discipline you. I'm not going to have to hold you that accountable because you're going to stick out if you don't keep up with the rest of the crew. And the rest of the
Exactly.
crew, they're going to pick you up and lift you up, but if you're falling behind, it's going to be extremely obvious. And I love that word that you used, the culture of the program, the culture of your program, the culture of what we try to provide out here at Mossy Pond. But it's tough to get it there, and that's something that I'm inspired about to be better every day. And talking with somebody like yourself, um,
Well, I think really, and look, uh, we had the saying kind of mentioned to you before: a rising tide lifts all ships, right? So when you're not having success, it is hard to build a culture.
yes, sir.
Like I find a few things that are very interesting to me, and I'm using sports because it is, it's my life. But you take an organization like the Detroit Lions, right? Really struggled, had some years with Matthew Stafford and Calvin Johnson where they thought they were pretty good. And it just, I mean, it was just turmoil all the time. And you bring in Dan Campbell, their new head coach from a few years ago, comes in, he struggles. Well, within a few years, they start having success, and all that does is get more guys to buy in. So there,
That's a key point. How do you think, whether it's somebody's profession or ball club, how when you're in a mess, you're not having success. What do you think the key is for the followers, the leaders, the team, the culture? What is the key to get that back up and rolling and gelling and get it back on its feet? What do you think the key things are to get that going?
yeah. Well, look, I think anytime you're facing some type of adversity, whether that's and look, there's a lot of things in adversity where everything else can be going great, right? Like your business, right? It's done great, it's grown. Well, that doesn't mean everything at home is going great, right? There could be other things that going on in your life, and you got to find a way how to balance all of that. And how do I? We used to say this, and it sounds bad, but you got to put stuff in a drawer sometimes,
Yeah,
right? So, what that meant for us, like, hey, whatever's going on in your life outside of this building, when you walk in this building, you better put that in a drawer,
I
right?
like it. I like it.
And when you come in here, however long we're in here today, if it's 6 a.m. to 6 o'clock that night, you better be ready to go. And then at 6 o'clock that night, you can open that drawer and deal with it to the next day. And that's a very harsh way to look at it. We work on the holidays and Christmas and everything else. And, I didn't have kids early in my career, so it was kind of easy, to kind of tell my wife, like, hey, I know this is Christmas. We'll get to that, uh, but this is what I'm doing right now. Like I got to do this. And Thanksgivings, it was like, hey, I'm working. I'll be home at 2 o'clock, and
Steady grind.
yeah, and that was just part of it. And um, it's in the building, right? I think, and that's just how I describe going to football in the building. But in the building at work, when things aren't going right as an organization, that's where you have to have those strong leaders
Yeah.
because that's where and look, I've seen it, and I was very fortunate to have a lot of success. I would say team success early in my career, and then the last 4 years of my career were some tough years. Winning 4 games, different things like that. So, but you would see these small groups, right? The small groups start coming together, and oh well, we're still doing this and this ain't working and it's this person's fault and it's that person's fault. And honestly, that's all BS,
Locker
right?
negativity.
Yeah. And that's where you get that. Again, it goes back to that 10% that are trying to pull the rope up and the 10% that are trying to pull the rope down. Well, when things aren't going well, that 10%'s now got to work into overdrive. And one thing I always found about leadership, it's very easy to lead people when everything's going great.
Yeah.
That ain't real leadership, right? It's when things are going bad, that's where real leadership happens. And
Dig
you
deep.
you got to try to find a way to get that 80% not to go to the bottom 10%. And you got to win that battle. It's like the battle of good and evil. Um and I think to me the culture that is created, right? And look, some of that too is getting the right people in the building, right? Just because a dog trainer comes to you, right? And let's say he's won all these awards and field trials, or a master duck hunting guide comes to you, whatever.
Yep.
That doesn't mean he's going to be the right fit for Mossy Pond,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Maybe he doesn't treat people the right way. Maybe he doesn't treat the dogs the right way or whatever. Just because they are good doesn't mean they're the right fit for a certain organization. And that to me is one thing about team building and all this stuff that I find just so fascinating, right? And I use it in football because you look at a lot of the teams that we played on with Tom Brady. Sure, we had Tom Brady. He is the best quarterback to ever do it. There's a lot of jokers that were a hell of a lot more talented than he was,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And a lot of the teams I played on, guys were over, way more talented. We played, the Kansas City Chiefs, their star power compared to us, or we played the Rams in the Super Bowl, their star power, the Falcons' star power in 2016, like it, it did laps around what we had, but we had something that they didn't have, and that was that culture, that was that, you know, willingness to battle for each other and do whatever it takes to win. You talk about that Falcon Super Bowl, you're down 28-3, like to be able to rally around each other and come back from that, that takes a special group of human beings,
yeah. That,
and from the coaching staff to the players. So sometimes I think we get disoriented in society. Oh, well, this person's more qualified, and look, there are certain qualifications, right? you can't you couldn't you could be the greatest, hardest worker and great team fit for the New England Patriots, but no offense, Brad, you can't go out there and block defensive ends. You
exactly.
know what I mean?
That's
So
right.
there are certain qualifications here.
That's right.
Um, you know, I love dogs. That don't mean I'm going to come down there and be a great dog trainer for you,
Right.
but so there are these qualifications, but just because someone has all the qualifications doesn't mean they're going to be a right fit for what you're trying to build there.
Yeah, yeah, and that that's tough to, not just leading but building a team, and that's something that I scratch my head every day about, because I got a big heart, and you don't want to cut people, you don't want to, move people up, and unless they're exactly what you need to be able to move them up to be able to lead that category, and that's the thing that I scratch my head on. Do I really want to cut this person? But that negativity locker room stuff, and we refer to it out here at Mossy Pond the same way. If you have somebody in the locker room that lower 10% that is being toxic, it can spoil the whole apple cart.
Oh yeah.
And that's something that my key guys I lean on out here. I was like, listen, we can be big hearted and we can love them all and love them up, but we got to put the right people in the right place, and that's something that I've battled with and struggled with, and we're trying to get better every day. But I know that's tough.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I think there's two things, and I use a lot of coaches, and I read there's it's the golly, I can't remember. They give a award for the best offensive line in college football, not a singular award. Maybe it's the Joe Moore Award. Uh, it's the best five guys, like the best overall unit. And Coach Moore was a very famous offensive line coach. I believe that's his name. But my buddy gave me his. It's not his book. He did a lot of coaching clinics, and someone went to it and put together all the information. And this is very no one needs to read this, because if you don't love offensive line play, it's the most boring, terrible thing. But I played offensive line for 26 years. It's who I am. It's what I love. And he gave me this pamphlet one day, and it's a photocopy thing that we put our own D rings in, or not D rings, like binder rings
Yeah,
in. And so I read it one off season, and I was trying to figure out, I'm still playing, but what am I going to do the rest of my life here? And I was thinking about coaching. I've always thought about coaching, and so I was just going through it. I was highlighting a bunch of stuff and making notes of stuff. But one thing stuck out to me that I really remembered, and he said, "It's the coach's job to set the standard. It's the player's job to uphold the standard."
yeah,
And I loved it, because I think sometimes we think, right, like for you, for instance, right, you're, you know, top guys in Mossy Pond.
hmm
Well, it's not their job to set the standard. No, this is your company. It's
that's
your job to set that standard,
right.
right?
You got to
And
lead by example.
yeah, and then now their job is to uphold that standard that you have set. And those leaders in the company, those people in positions of leadership, whether that's, you know, the finance team, the
Yeah.
dog train, whoever it may be, the custodians, whoever it may be, it's their job to now, you know, uphold that standard. And I love that. And how what I think about that is there's a lot of stories of Bill and look, we used to you would sit in some meetings with Bill, they would be tough. And
I'm sure.
but again, like I said, there wasn't a lot of bad things you could have said about Tom Brady and how he played and performed.
Yeah.
But there was no sacred cow in that building.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it didn't matter if you were Tom Brady, Julian Edelman, Rob Gronkowski, or the rookie that was, you know, me being a rookie, undrafted guy who shouldn't have even made the team and, you know, moved on and sold insurance. There was no, it didn't matter. If you messed up, you were getting coached.
That's right.
And that set such a great example, I think, in what helped build our culture, because you're sitting there now as this undrafted guy and being like, so that's Tom Brady, who's won, you know, when I got there, he won 4 Super Bowls. I
Yeah. I
think
bet that was tough walking in that room.
yeah, 2-time MVP. You know, all he was a Hall of Famer by the time I walked in the building. And he's getting this for not really that big of a deal because his drop was messed up. Like he was supposed to be at 7 yards and he was at 8.
Yeah.
And what then if that's the case, then what am I going to get? You
That's
know, and
standard.
it it fueled competition between us, right? And it fueled us to know we had to be at our best every day. And look, there's a lot that people say about New England, and we didn't have fun, and it was hard. And look, it was hard. It was demanding. And I was doing radio Monday, and the guys were talking to me, and they're saying, "Well, it just seems like this team, you guys were just all business," and we were. That's when we walked in that building. Like I said, we put stuff in a drawer, and it was no frills. It was we were working. And now look, we cut it loose. Don't get me wrong. We had a lot of fun. You can look at some of the parade videos and different
That's
things, but we knew when that time was. And and this team's a little bit the new Patriots, they're a little bit more relaxed. It's a different culture. And that's fine. There's 100 different ways to skin a cat, but I think with that, and then also Dante, our old line coach, which I said, like, these are just two of the biggest coaching influences on my professional career. And Dante told us his job as our O line coach, one was to always tell us the truth,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's an amazing thing with leadership. You always got to tell someone the truth, right? And
It's on their heart, or you can't move forward.
yep, you got to tell them the truth. So if it's not good enough, you got to tell them.
Yeah.
Right, because I think then you talk about getting the right people in there. If it's not good enough, you want to be told it's not good enough because then you're trying to be the best you can be, right? And so you got a new dog trainer and he's messing up. You know, part of being able to accept leadership is being able to take hard truths. And it's like, hey man, that's not good enough.
Yeah, that's seems like that's getting tougher and tougher. With my little league teams to tell little Johnny, that realistically you're not going to start if you keep doing this. My dog trainers, the guides out there, like I said, I'm a big-hearted guy. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but the worst thing that I could do to them is pat them on the butt and tell them they're doing a great job, and knowing good and well when a premier customer comes in, or we're putting a senior guide or a highlighted guide with these premier customers, he's not going to get to go out. And then he's going to be over there at the bunkhouse scratching his head. And that's something that I struggle with.
But I think the caveat to that is he would always say, it's my job to tell you the truth, but then it's to give you answers to fix the problems.
Yes,
If I
sir.
can't do that, then I failed. And
Yes.
so that's where I think that's and look, again, I think I've watched a lot of guys come into the league, and some guys really struggle and then they go on to other places and they have a great career. And I've always wondered, why is that? And because I saw so many people at the Patriots who shouldn't have been what they were, myself included. And Tom Brady was a 6th round draft pick. Julian Edelman was a 7th round draft pick. Like there's been a lot of guys in that organization that should have never, they might have played a few years and it just kind of is what it is, but they turned it in and maximized the most out of that. And look, I mean, there's got to be some willingness on both sides of this coin. And the leaders got to do a good job, or the boss, whoever. But then the people have to be, you have to. I think you have to look in yourself, right? And I've always thought this with coaching and football coaching. They're hard on you. They say a lot of things to you. There's a lot of cuss words and you piece of all this kind of stuff and sometimes I think you gotta go home some days and look in the mirror and be like, all right, am I taking this personally, or what? Why is this happening, right?
Yeah.
And I think it takes a lot of self accountability when you're getting instruction or in the group to be like, well, why are they just doing this? Are they singling me out because even though I think I'm doing my best, there's some more there I can give. I can do better. Uh,
It's
or
funny you start leaning on those guys that you see more talent in. It's like a constant balance beam because I'm tough on our guys, like really tough. But then at the same time, I know that they can do it, and I don't want to break their spirit. And it's a balance beam all the time. I feel like I want to cut them, I want to ride them, I want to hold them accountable because I know that's what will make them better. But it seems like this younger generation, my guys that I'm managing in their 20s, I mean, they take it personal. I told one just the other week, and I wasn't being ugly to him. And this young man, he adores me and loves me, and I love him. But I said, I talk rougher to the middle school football team than I'm talking to you. And, you're wanting to leave me on it because you think it's disrespectful. It's not disrespectful. I'm trying to hold you accountable. And that's something that we're working with through here. And I keep the communication, what you started off with. I think that is key. Is to maybe they do have a hard day, and I have a tough day of coaching them. But then if you communicate in meetings and stuff and explain why, I think that communication is huge.
yeah, and I heard this quote from Steve Harvey the other day, and it said,
Man, I like listening to Steve.
yeah, Steve's interesting, and I think he has a lot of good points. But he said something the other day that I just saw it on like a Twitter podcast clip. I don't know what it was in reference to, but he said when you realize, and look, I know, not everyone has dads and things like that, but when you realize your dad is the only man that wanted you to be better than he was,
Amen. Yep.
you understand why things happened, and you look at, my son's only 4.5, and some days my wife's like, you got to remember he's a 4-year-old, but you know, there's so much more in there at times that he's capable of at whatever it may be, right? And we just, I think we want to make things so easy on everybody, and we live these easy, amazing, easy lifestyles. Whatever you need, you can go on your phone, click 2 buttons, and it's at your door the next day. Hell, you can order, you know, Chick-fil-A on your phone and it gets delivered to your front door, like whatever it is. And so and it's not like that's bad. Like that's what happens. The world gets easier. We technology and all this stuff, but it's also still this, there's got to be this demanding accountability, right? And ownership on your life and maximizing, you know, whatever gifts God has given you. That to me is like the most important thing. And when I look at my career, you know, whatever my career was, I just wanted to know at the end of the day, I gave it all I had
Yeah.
and I had no regrets.
Yeah.
Because if it, is, hey, I got to play for 2 years. I played in one game. and I was a backup and that was it, then I think it's a lot easier to walk away from the game because you gave it all you had. You did everything you could to maximize this
Red team.
ability, and you can, when you lay your head down at night and you look yourself in the mirror, you said, hey, like, a lot of people have texted me all year. It's my first year out of football. I played since I was 6 years old. How has it been?
How you handling it, right?
Yeah, and how's it been? Or, what's it like now that the Patriots are in the Super Bowl? And it was I was pretty vocal that I wanted to try to play this year, earlier in, I guess last off season. And, well, how's it been? How's that feel? And look, it's fine. Like, I've had an amazing year. And I would say part of that is because every day when I was playing, I knew what I was trying to do.
Yeah,
And look, I
no,
sac I sacrificed a lot. My wife sacrificed a lot, especially in the off season. Hey, let's go do, well, I can't. We get 6 weeks off in the summer. I used to never go on vacation. I went on one vacation in my 10 years over the summer because it was just, I can't. I got to do this. This is what's pressing right now. And if we do this, things are going to be a lot better in 10 years down the road. Obviously, playing football, there's a lot of financial gain in that. And, that to me is, what's so important. And again, I think as a leader, it's sometimes getting people to recognize that this isn't personal, but I want you to be the best dog trainer or best duck guide or best cook or hostess or whatever it is that you can be, because that's going to be good for you. And sure, yeah, it's going to be good for me in return as the owner and leadership and everything. But the more money our company makes, the more you're going to have to get paid eventually, right? Like we talk about this NFL salary cap. The more that salary cap comes up, the more money, well, I guess the more money the NFL makes, the more salary that we are given because it's a revenue split. So if the NFL is doing great, that's great for the players. And sure, yeah, are the owners making out like bandits? Yeah, but that's what it is.
everybody.
Yeah. And so I think it's getting people to try to realize that it's not personal. This isn't about my success. You know, sure, yeah, of course. Again, whatever good happens, we all benefit. But, this is about you being the best person you can be, the best whatever role that is, husband, father, doctor, teacher, custodian, whatever you do, you should strive to be the best in it. And I think that's part of getting people that understand that and want that in the culture, which can be hard, but you're not going to get all of those. So
Everything matters. Everything matters.
however,
Yep.
that was one thing I learned, the details, whether it's, hey, like, and that became a thing too, working in the NFL, that I saw in leadership from guys. Hey, how you treat people in this building, how you treat this building is very important. And it's, look, we're so blessed in the NFL. You have full-time equipment staff. They do your laundry. If you want to wear 30 different sweatshirts that day, go ahead. They're all going to be hanging up clean in your locker the next day. If you want to ask the nutrition staff to make you 7 shakes and protein shakes a day, go ahead. They'll do it. If you need a special meal, they'll make you a special meal.
How cool, man.
It's unbelievable, but how you treat those people and how you treat that building, right? You should treat that building with the utmost respect. You should treat those people with the utmost respect that are serving you. Uh, because they're doing this one for a lot less money than you are. They get no fame, they get no glory. They don't, no one cares. So you got to treat these people. And look, without the people in that building, none of us could go do our job. So, that was something I learned too, is just, and it was very taught to me early on by a lot of the leaders. And I watched these guys, the older statesmen when I got in the league, how they treated all these people, the Tom Brady's, the Edelmans, the Matthews, Devin McCourty's, how they treated the equipment guys was unbelievable.
But
Like,
when it's genuine, you use that word in the beginning. When it's genuine, it's easy, because it's who you are and what you are, and that part just oozes out of you since the day I've met you. I mean, it's genuine. It's not, and smart, intelligent people can spot a fake, and the second they spot a fake, that's when they lose respect, and you can just see it oozing out of you. How genuine of a person you are when you are, and you're good to all of them. And I know that's how you were when you were there. Just a few times that I've been with you and talking with you, that goes a long way.
yeah, I couldn't get over. I was only there one night, so I mean, I think I had a book bag of clothes, and we pulled up and we're pulling up to the main lodge, and I went out and opened the back door. They're like, "We'll get your bag," and I was like, "Guys,
That's
like, I could understand if I had a, hunting tote, my big
right.
hunting bag and my actual personal clothes bag. And I know people bring their dogs, and I had dog food and a dog kennel. I was like,
Yeah.
guys, I got a book bag. I can carry, but it was just, you know, I told him, I was like, you guys are gonna get me in trouble when I go home and call my wife to
Yeah, right.
come get my book bag out of my truck here. I can't carry it inside. But
When
no,
it's
I mean,
crazy, just like the Chick-fil-A thing. That's I talk to my team about it all the time, and everybody rolls their eyes. Here goes Brad with the Chick-fil-A thing. But man, people want to be treated nice, and people want to be treated good and polite and respectful, and it just puts you in a better mood, and that's what we pride ourselves and try to do around here, just like what you're saying.
well, you've done a great job, but it just is it is such a and I do think I'll say this too about leadership. Not everybody needs to be a leader in however you may be a leader,
Yeah,
right? There's people that I think in our organization that weren't captains, but when I look at them, if I had a young guy on the team come up to me and say, "Hey, who should I watch?" I say, "Hey, see that guy over there? I'd watch everything he does." And because he didn't talk much, but he was a good person. He showed up, did everything right. He was dependable. Like, we had a guy named James White. He was a running back, just a ultimate professional guy. One of the quietest guys I've ever been around. Didn't say much. You try to get some stuff out of him every now and then, but he was just unbelievable. Now he's a head football coach.
oh
Uh,
wow.
but that was a guy when, I think about that was one of the best teammates I've had and one of the best leaders of what I thought, being a pro football player was. He was so dependable. He came in early, didn't get a lot of opportunities. When they gave him it as opportunity, he ran with it and never looked back.
He was gonna capitalize.
And there were so many different guys like that. And then we had the leaders that were rah rah, they had all everything. People talk about Tom. Tom really only spoke to us once a year. When we got to the Super Bowl, you were going to get a speech from him.
Yeah,
It wasn't like he was doing that every day, but he led by his actions a lot of times, right? He demanded.
yeah.
There was a lot he demanded, and you had to be on it for him. But um, you know, I think people get so wrapped up in you know these speeches, right? And you know, Disney and all these amazing movies about sports come out and they're unbelievable. And I mean that speech in the movie Miracle, the
Sure. Yeah.
hockey movie, is unbelievable. We played the Falcons and we were down 28-3. That's the biggest thing everyone wants to know.
What they say?
Was
What they say?
what was the speech at halftime?
Yeah.
There was not some amazing speech. What we got at halftime were the facts, and the facts were, you know, and that game's just interesting. And look, you on average you run 60-ish plays of offense a game, right? So in the first half of that game, we ran 44 plays,
Wow.
which is a lot.
Yep.
And our offensive coordinator came in on the whiteboard, wrote 44 plays, and we had a crazy amount of time of possession. Make it count. And then, really, it was like, guys, this isn't about them. This is about us. It's about how we're messing it up. We threw the pick six. We had a fumble. Like, we had a lot of different things that we were beating ourselves, and it wasn't about them. And sure, there were a couple players saying some things, but it wasn't, something the most amazing thing. And uh, you know, we ended up running 45 plays in the second half. So we ran 99 plays. It's the most amount of plays ever ran by an offense in a Super Bowl. It really, I look at that and it's like, it goes back to that telling the truth and giving solutions to the problems. It wasn't about, you know, guys, we got to go out there and blah, blah, blah. In
Yeah.
this amazing Disney movie speech that gets turned into it. It was about, hey, here are the issues. Here's how we're going to fix them. Let's go do that. And
Everybody go
let's
together.
see what happens. Let's start by doing that. We can't score, you can't score 25 points on one play in football, right? So everybody's got to do their job, right? I can't score touchdowns. The center cannot score a touchdown. So I don't need to worry about scoring a touchdown. I need to worry about blocking that guy in front of me,
Do your
then
job.
doing it the next play, then doing it the next play. And again, you score a touchdown, you're only getting 6 points. So worry about scoring the touchdown, and then let's go get the next one and see what happens. And then let's go get the next one and see what happens. But if you freak out and panic and say, all right, we got to do this amazing thing to come back, it's going to overwhelm you. You got to focus on the little task at hand. And I think that was a lot of the amazing leaders, from the coaches to the players, that we had that year to able to accomplish that.
That is that key word, team. When
Yeah.
you got a great team that surrounds you, you can accomplish some amazing things. Got a question for you. So
Okay.
you spoke about earlier, like a rookie, and I have these young guys that come in here. I'm like, wow. I mean, he's so talented. He's going to be, he's going to be amazing. What advice? And just like yourself, when you stepped up to the NFL and you walked into that room, I know in your, you were a little had anxiety, you were a little nervous, but look at the things you accomplished over the next 8 years. What would you tell that young person when they came in there? How what are the key things that they need to know to be able to follow properly, even if one day they are going to be the captain? But that first year, how do you come in there around that surroundings, whether it's in a profession and you want to move up to be the CEO or the GM for the business, or the top tier guide, or be a captain like you were? What that first year, what do you tell those guys where they don't shoot themselves in the foot? Because I see some of these young guys that come in here with me, they're so talented. I mean, it's just pouring out of. I'm like, wow, he's going to be amazing. But either they do make it, or either they success has killed more men than failure, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so, what would you give yourself? What advice would you give yourself? Which it worked for you, or anybody else out there that's just coming into a profession or a new team as a rookie?
I would say one, and you kind of mentioned this earlier, don't take it personal.
Yeah.
You cannot take criticism personal. And I would say this. This is not a look, we've all been around bad leaders, and we've all been around bad, jobs, companies, or whatever. And sometimes it is personal. And that's a them problem. That's not a you problem. Right. And that stuff, that I think you can tell when that stuff happens, that, hey, this isn't the right situation. But also, if you still are able to work through that and find the little pieces of nuggets in there, you are just going to set yourself up, one, to either leave and go get a better job, or whatever. But if you are in a situation where it is personal, right, for whatever reason, right, and look, that's just me saying they're bad leaders, there's
Sure.
bad people
That's
out
right.
there. That stuff is going to come out in the weeds eventually.
That's right.
But
Stay the course.
if you sit in that situation, and it's not a good one, and you don't do anything to improve and at least try to find the nuggets in this bad situation to make yourself better, well, you're not setting yourself up for success in anything else. So you're just wasting time. But let's say it is a good, you cannot take anything personal. Uh, my grandfather told me this one time, you'll like this. It's got to be like water on a duck's back,
That's
right?
right.
It's just got to roll off. And you can't take criticism personal. Uh, that to me, I learned that very early on. And then
It
the big
stings
thing,
sometimes. It stings.
yeah, it hurts, and I think um, you got to be able to separate, these personal feelings versus constructive criticism. And sure, it does sound, like I can remember having hard days in training camp, right, and feeling like I tried my best,
Mhm.
and but in the reality, just because you tried your best, that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Like business and the NFL especially, it gets a cutthroat business, and it's about execution. It's about success. That's what it's about. And just because you tried, look, that might be good, but if you're working somewhere where they are demanding the best out of you, then it might not be good enough. And you can either have that feeling of, well, I tried and I did my best, or you can say, look, I tried and did my best. Okay, it wasn't good enough. How do I make it better?
Yeah.
And that's a big thing. Look, a lot of it to me is personal conviction. Um, and then on top of it, I think when you're young or new in a role and you're trying to learn and figure it out, a new dog trainer comes to you, right? He's not going to master everything day one,
No.
right? So let's say he's trying to work on, and this goes to dogs too. Like you can't take a new dog and make him a champion dog
Mm-mm.
in the first week. Like this is time.
Zillions of hours.
Yeah, and it's all right. What are we going to do? Let's start with one thing, right? And so I tell rookies, right? They would come in and they'd have a practice, right? And the coaches, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, you did. Okay, take a deep breath, right? Let's focus on one thing because we can't fix the world's problems in one day.
Oh.
So let's focus on one thing. So I'm just football terms. Your first step in the run game was really bad yesterday. On this particular, let's say, zone step, this zone step was so bad yesterday. If you go out there tomorrow and you're trying to fix the zone step, your pass set, the punch, you're worried about the assignments you missed, it's too much. You're going to overwhelm yourself. So why don't you take that step and be like, I'm going to get better at that today.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to get better at. Okay, I did it, right?
They'll
Tomorrow,
be overwhelmed.
yeah, tomorrow, hey, we're going to work on our hands, whether that's in the run game, pass game, whatever. Well, that's what we're focusing on. And then we're going to do that. It is about building blocks
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
and building that foundation to where one day you get down the road and you look and you're like,
You look
oh
back and
man,
it's built. Yeah.
yeah, look what I've done. And look, it doesn't happen overnight. Like, if that was the case, nobody would ever make the NFL, right? Tom Brady would have been released his rookie year because he was not that good.
Yeah.
And
Can't take it personal. Can't take and don't fall victim. Seems like this is why or that's why. You can't fall victim to the criticism and why that one day didn't work out because just like you say, I mean, there's bad days with everybody, but
yeah,
keep building those blocks.
and I think, as a leader too, like being a center, you're forced into a natural role of leadership, right? So let's say a play went bad up front and, you know, maybe it was someone's fault. When we got to the sideline, it was, hey, Dante, I messed that up.
Yeah,
That was me. I'll fix it. We'll fix it. Versus getting there and being like, yeah, well, the right guard stepped on my foot and
that's right.
he
No
didn't.
excuses. No excuses.
Yeah, you can't have those excuses. And I think as a young player, I would see these guys come in, and I did this too, right? And I had some amazing veterans around me, but you just get so overwhelmed, you get down on yourself. And if you don't have someone telling you, or you don't have the own personal conviction of like, hey, this person just wants what's best for me, and I got to figure out how to do it, then it then you start playing the blame game, or
Yeah, yeah. That
I
that
didn't I didn't get
that's
the
turmoil. Then I mean,
yeah, I didn't get the same opportunity that Jimmy got, and
yeah,
I had a head cold, so I didn't feel good, and uh, you just you go down that road, which is very dangerous. But I think for any young people, knowing that success doesn't happen overnight, and it's not easy. There's a lot of ups and downs. And it's not you can't ride that wave of good and bad.
yeah.
Um, and we talk about that throughout the year, right? Like you win 8 games in a row. What's everyone say about you? Oh, they're the best, whatever. You get dogs that go for
Yeah.
5 years in a row and win championships, and then the next year they don't even place, and it's like, oh well, Mossy Pond, they don't do good dog training anymore. It's an emotional life.
It
Everything's an
is
emotional roller
anything
coaster.
any elite organization. I
Yeah,
think.
you have to
Then you got
stay.
the elite after you too.
You have to stay right here,
That's right.
and you can't ride the good, because when it's good, you'll sit there and say, man, everything's going good. We got the best dogs. We're the best football team. We're the best business out there. Well, all right, we'll not worry about this, and we'll not. I'll never forget. My dad told me one day he ran a company, and he started wearing golf shirts into work every day. He always wore suits. He started wearing golf shirts, jeans, slacks, pants, khakis. And he just said one day he got up, and I noticed he'd worn a suit a few days in a row. I was like, oh, maybe he had meetings or something. I was like, a week later, he's still wearing suits. And I was like, Dad, why are you wearing all these suits again? And he goes, because I started, his business was doing really well. And he's like, I feel like I started wearing, casual clothes,
Everybody else.
and everybody else did. And he goes, I just feel
Standard.
like we just started losing our edge a little bit.
Yeah.
And, I was like, wow, that's, pretty interesting. But there's some, truth to that. Like we talked about the details earlier, and that stuff matters.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, out of all the amazing events in your life and everything, give me a short story on which one stands out more than any of the moments that you ever had in your whole career coming through. What is the highlight, the pinnacle of something that stands out that meant the most to you? Um,
Football wise, are you talking
yeah, no,
person?
yeah, football, football.
All right, good. Cause I had to make sure if I don't say,
Yeah, you better be careful. I better be careful.
Mary and my wife or the birth of my kids,
Amen to that, brother.
I'd probably be in trouble. I think, and I think about a lot of the guys that are playing in the Super Bowl this weekend, and we've talked a lot about this game. There's not a lot of people on the Patriots now. This isn't the Patriots of past where you look out there and it's like, oh, well, they played in, 3 Super Bowl. There's all these guys that have played in Super Bowls. It's not the truth for the Patriots right now. There's a few, and they were on different teams, but there's no one on the team from our last Super Bowl run. And, I think getting to stand in pregame in the Super Bowl and hearing the national anthem and that wave, I mean, my eyes teared up, and
Yeah,
that wave of emotion you feel that day, because it's like I said, I started playing the game when I was 6 years old, and you get wrapped up in what you're doing every day, right? And it's a grind, right? I think, and we've all lost that feeling of like what we're doing, right? And look, not everyone gets to do what they wanted to do when they were 5 years old, right? Like you got to be a man, or and do what you got to do to provide for your family. Um, but some of us are very fortunate to get to do what we do, but we lose track of what we're actually doing. Because it does become a job, and it is just because think people get misconstrued. Just because people do something they love, that makes it easy,
Yeah.
and that's not the truth. And but you lose sight of how blessed you are and what you're doing, and so standing out on that field, of dreaming of getting to this moment since we're 6 years old, and getting to realize, you know, one, all the people that sacrificed for you along the way. It was that was something I wanted to do in my retirement speech. Is I had a I you know I didn't really talk about me at all. I wanted to make everyone that did something for me feel, as best as I could, without taking up the whole day of letting people know how much I appreciated what they did for me, because you can't do anything on your own. It takes, amazing people, whether it's your wife, your parents, all the other influential people in your life that have sacrificed some bit of time or effort for really no personal gain. Um, and uh, standing out there, having that emotion, representing, um, you know, one, the team you play for, but then the name on the back of your jersey.
Yep.
uh, the jets flying over your head, the national anthem playing, like it is.
I got chills running up. That's
Yeah, it's a very emotional moment. There's a famous clip of the Eagles coach a few years ago, which, you know, I didn't have Chris Stapleton singing the national anthem, but everyone's seen that. I mean, and
yeah,
he's
sure.
just sitting there bawling.
Mhm.
And I thought that was it was
It
a
was real.
yeah, that is 100% a real emotion that I understood that guy was feeling. Um, and then to get to win it, um, is probably just it just validates all the sacrifices you made. And when you get to share it with the people, I always took my buddies and guys I grew up with, to get to share it with them, my wife. It just makes everything you went through all worth it when you reach the pinnacle of whatever it is you're trying to do. And then losing it
Yeah.
is the complete opposite. We always used to say it's no matter what, it's 31 crash landings for NFL organizations, right? There's only one that survives, and just because you make it there, it doesn't mean anything, and it doesn't hurt as less when you make it and lose, rather than just sitting on the couch watching it.
That's right. Well, man, this is awesome. This is awesome. What an amazing guy, amazing football player, but more of an amazing human being, Mr. David. I've always said that. This was a true honor for you to come on and sit on here with us today, and we thank you so much.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate you having me.
Yes, sir. Well, this is another episode of Field Tested with Brad Arrington. Thank you to the listeners, and stay tuned.